Hello and welcome, everyone. I'm Maggie McAlpine, the Director of Cybersecurity Partnerships and Evangelism at Seceon. Thank you so much for joining us from wherever you are visiting us in the world. Today's session is part of our bi-weekly series, the 2026 Cyber Battlefield, How Unified XDR, ITDR, UEBA, and OT Security Stop the Most Dangerous Threats, which is focused on how MSPs are navigating identity-driven, supply chain, and OT-centric attacks while we're building more scalable and profitable security operations. With me today is Archanish, our Director of Cybersecurity, who works closely with security teams and partners addressing real-world threats across complex environments. And with us is also Tom Ertl, SVP of Technical Sales here at Seceon, with over 30 years of experience helping organizations protect their networks from evolving cyber threats and supporting key customers globally. I'm so glad everyone could join us today. Please feel free to submit your questions through the Q&A feature as we go, and we will answer them at the end. With that, in the interest of time, I'm going to pass the mic over to Tom and Archanish. Thank you, gentlemen, for getting us started.
Yeah, thanks, Maggie, for that introduction. You were very generous with my experience. It's a lot longer than that, sadly. Yeah, I've been in high tech, networking, telecoms, and then physical and security for the last, and cybersecurity for the last 15 years. Okay, so let me share my screen. That. Okay, you're seeing a slide deck, everyone, I hope?
Yes, we are.
Okay. All right, let's get started. Let me hide these controls. Okay. So today we're going to talk about ransomware as a service, APTs, sort of how all that plays into this cyber battlefield we're talking about. Two in particular, we'll focus on a little bit, LockBit and Akira. And then in general, what we're going to be doing is demonstrating some new functionality that we've added to the platform. Let me just turn off my camera here. Sorry. I want to make sure that I don't lose my video. Okay. So, well, we'll be talking about too many things going on. I apologize.
Yeah.
All right, back to this. So,
Tom, could you switch to presentation mode for your present?
That's a very good question, Maggie.
Sorry, upper right-hand corner.
Yeah. It's too small for me to see here. Is this it?
Yep. Presenter view, yes, at the top.
Okay.
Oh, oops.
All right. Sorry for the.
There you go. This is better.
All right, bad start. Anyway, here's what we're going to talk about today. Ransomware as a service, a couple of different providers, LockBit, Akira, Seceon's advantages in regards to those ITDR, identity threat detection and response, which is something that's been built into our platform from the get-go, and then SOAR, so the ability to write playbooks to actually take actions based on attacks. So let's dive in here. So let's talk a little bit about APTs. Now, most ransomware as a service providers are basically APTs, right? So it's an advanced persistent threat, something that tries to get into your environment, dig in, lay low, and try to collect information over a long period of time, right? So ransomware as a service would be doing that for the purpose of trying to collect money, right? Trying to extort, trying to steal data and then charge for it. Not all APTs are ransomware as a service. Okay, if we go to this next slide here, if we look in the lower left here, lots of APTs are actually threat actors, right? So you can see here we've got things from China down in the lower left here. We've got things from Iran. We've got things from North Korea, all different kinds of state-sponsored APTs that are actually designed to collect intelligence, maybe uh, disrupt different utilities, power or water, maybe influence financial markets. So a lot of these state-sponsored things are not necessarily ransomware based, but basically out there to try to steal information, disrupt governments, disrupt operations. Okay. But what we're going to be focusing more on today is this ransomware as a service. And so you can see here, since 2000, as of Q3 2025, it's just gone crazy, right? The amount of attacks out there is critical. I have a stat here that says since the end of 2024, 73.2 billion credentials have been compromised. Okay. And so I'm sure that number is, significantly higher since then. So it's just a very uh, burgeoning business. And it's an interesting business in that it is a business. Okay. So the providers of this, the LockBits, the Akiras, basically what they do is they've created a tool set that then others can go out and use. And so they probably, I don't know this for sure, but they probably provide the tools for free or for a nominal fee. But then what they do is they actually take a percentage of everything that they get from the attack, right? So in Lockbit's case, the number that's been quoted is 20%. So anytime somebody goes out and attacks someone and gets paid for it, Lockbit gets 20% of that. And Akira is probably similar. So this is huge business. I mean, it's probably hundreds of billions, if not trillions of dollars that is being transacted through these different ransomware as a service attacks. One particular attack I'll talk about later, in and of itself was over 3 to 4 billion impact. So just huge business opportunity. And as you can see over here, the problem is it is like a hydra, right? You cut one head off and five more emerge. So there's always new ransomware attack providers, services being offered, and new attacks happening all the time. So this is a very, very challenging thing for anybody who's trying to, one, protect their customers, or governments trying to protect their information. It's a huge, huge challenge. So again, what we're here to talk about today is, how can we help? How can you, as someone trying to provide services, manage this or try to protect yourself from this? So down here lower right, there's some new things that have been happening, right? So some new innovations, these fakes, which is really just using video instead of just words. Uh, they've been exploiting some of the uh, particular openings in Cisco VPNs and in SharePoint. In particular, one particular attack down here was SalesLoft. This happened in August of 2025. This is very recent. But basically, a ransomware attacker got into something called GitHub, right? This is a cloud-based collaboration platform. And they got in, and what they did is they stole 700 basically authentication tokens to get into other companies' uh, information. And it was companies like Google and Amazon S3 and Azure and OpenAI. So all of those were breached. Even some of the security providers, Cloudflare, Palo, basically got breached through this. And so what they did is they went in. I mean, Salesforce actually integration got shut down because of this attack. So they got in, stole information, and again, that was $3 to $4 billion of downstream impact across all those different companies. Okay, so this is a huge, huge problem in the industry, not going away. As we'll look in this next slide here, this is LockBit. They've been around since I think it's like 2019. First came out. Delivered their solution for people to start using, lots of attacks. In 2024, a group of countries, if you will, so it was started by the UK, by their National Crime Agency, and then the FBI joined in, and they went after these guys. They went after Lockbit, and they actually did uh, stop them. They shut them down. They actually seized some of their infrastructure. They call it doxing, but they basically outed the founder. I forget his name, Dmitry Koroshev. So in 2024, they did a pretty good job of trying to slow uh, Lockbit. Sadly, and they've come back stronger, right? In 2025, they got a new version, Lockbit 5, with code name here you see. So this, as much as governments, individuals try to do their best to stop these guys. It's such a huge business that it's not going away. Okay. I mean, it's just going to keep expanding. That was LockBit. This is Akira, and they've been around since I think it's 2023. Uh, so fairly new, a newer entry into the space. I just did a quick little table here to show the differences, but basically you can think of it as LockBit was sort of the original. There were probably a few players before LockBit, but they were pretty much the original or the biggest provider for a while. And then Akira is sort of a fast follower, right? So they came in and said, "Hey, there's money to be made here." This LockBit is not completely attributed to Russia, but it's basically it seems to have been founded by folks in Russia. This one, it's not quite clear, Akira, where it was originated, but it's smaller, maybe sort of faster moving, and maybe a little more high tech. So these are just two examples. As I said, there's all kinds of solutions out there that are trying to deliver this service. So what we're here to talk about today is Seceon adding functionality into its platform to help you be able to detect if you have these kinds of APTs in your environment, right? So we call this BAS, Breach Attack Simulation 360. We've been doing constant innovations. You can see here we've added compliance, we've added OT protection. So what today we're talking about is the breach attack simulation. So just a quick summary of it, how it works. So what you do is we've created an agent, right? And so you take an agent and you deploy it on an endpoint, right? You pick an endpoint that's got the same security posture as the rest of your endpoints in your environment. You deploy this agent on it, and then you pick an APT or attack type. It could be LockBit, it could be Akira, it could be APT 28, which is I forget what that one is. I have that somewhere, but anyway, so there's all kinds of them, and I'll show you those when we get into the actual demo. So you pick the attack simulation you want to run. Basically, it will come up and show you how your environment did against that attack. Right? If you had LockBit in your environment, what would have happened? Okay, what would have gotten through? What would have gotten detected? The platform itself, whenever there's an attack and alerts generated, it will show you how to actually deal with that. So we'll show you a little bit of that and then actually generate a report. So just go through that one more time. You select an endpoint that has the security posture that you know for your environment. You load that BAS agent on. You select the APT you want to run. You run that simulation, which I want to be clear, it's not just checking that endpoint. What it's doing is it's acting like it's actually the virus on an endpoint in your environment, and it goes out into your environment and looks to see if it can talk to a command and control site, looks to see if it can do lateral movement. So it's basically trying to do all the things, use all the techniques that that particular attack that RIS would use, and then show you how your environment does against it. Okay. So let's go in and take a look at an actual demo here. Second here. Okay, so here, if you're familiar with our platform at all, this is our MSSP screen where you have multiple environments, or multiple customers. Here we just have this demo environment, so I'll just open this up. And so you come into our standard platform. So now we'll go into the BAS 360. You can see here, this is new functionality. We'll open this up, show you a dashboard. Give this a second to populate. Okay, so what this is showing, this is sort of a high-level overview of what's happening, what's been happening in the environment, what types of things are going on. So I'll just sort of walk through this with you. This number here basically is showing you all the different techniques that are used by all the different attacks. And it basically is mapped to MITRE. So if I go over here, I can show you into the platform. We actually show all the MITRE attack techniques and where they're used in your particular environment. So this is a mapping of this particular instance. This is the MITRE table. So across the top of that table, you have all the different tactics. There's 14 different tactics that MITRE defines, right? And they work from left to right. So reconnaissance meaning, okay, let's find out what's going on in your environment. Evasion. So as you work your way up the chain, right? So as you get further and further into attack, you move further and further to the right, and you find when you get to the end here, it's impact. You're actually encrypting files, you're exfiltrating files. So underneath each of these tactics are all the different techniques, right? And there's sub-techniques under these. So you can see here, I just any random one, boot or login, auto start, or let's see over here in reconnaissance, active scanning, right? So all these different techniques are things that an APT or ransomware-as-a-service would use to try to, once they get in your environment, to try to move around, look for information that's of value, and then potentially take action on it. Okay, so let's go back to the dashboard. So that was this number, all the different possible techniques. This number is the number of adversaries that have been like LockBit and Akira and all the different types of attacks that we are currently simulating, and this will constantly be grown. Okay, these are sort of the newest and most active ones. You'll see that obviously Akira and LockBit are in here. These are the most active techniques. Okay, this is showing you that so the 28 most active techniques within those different attacks. And this is just showing you the number of agents. So we have 3 different endpoints loaded with the BAS agent. And again, this is just a high-level dashboard. So here's it showing you which of the abilities or techniques have the most success rate. So you can see here, find host name, reverse lookup, and so forth. Here, now, so those tactics I showed you, the 14 tactics, this is showing you, the top 10 out of all those that are used the most, and then how many of each. So you have, for execution, you have 86 different abilities that were successful. So just more information down below here. This is showing you how many different attacks have been run, how many have finished. Actually, there's also typically one here. This is if you're cleaning one up. Once you're done, get rid of that agent, you clean that up. And then down here is the top 10 abilities used in the operation. So again, you can see here, the different ones that are here. So high-level dashboard, and this will, I'm sure, continue to be enhanced, but just giving you a nice high-level picture of what's going on. The way you actually do this, as I described, is you come in here and you say, okay, I want to download this agent, right? So I come in here, I download the agent, and then what I do is I pick an endpoint and I load it onto it. And these are already loaded. So if I open these up, you'll see here, I've got the Seceon BAS agent. So download it, load it onto an endpoint. Then what you do is you come over, and now what I'll show here is the different APTs and attacks that we have loaded. Give this a second. So here you can see APT 15, 28. So these are all different attack types. And so the ones that we're going to look at today, let's look at LockBit. Here we see we finished running it. And so now this is showing you so this is the same MITRE table. If I scrolled over, I can show you all the different tactics. And it's showing you which ones of those techniques were used in the attack, which ones executed, which means failed. If that particular technique was executed and it worked, that's a failure for my security. If we blocked it, that's a pass. So I can show you, we can look here, there were 263 total techniques used. And again, this is just a mapping of if I scroll down further, I could show you all of them, but all the different techniques that were used. You can also sort it by just blocked or executed, and obviously the executed are the ones you're worried about, right? So you come in here, you can see all the different techniques that succeeded. Okay, so this would be bad, right? If you ran this in your environment, you found you had all of these techniques that actually worked, you have some problems, right? And you have to deal with it. So how do you deal with it? So the way our platform works is you actually get alerts, right? So if you ran that test, you would have gotten an alert saying, "Hey, if I come in here, one of the things that you would have seen was a script execution, right?" So that's one of the techniques, right? Running PowerShell scripts, and you would have seen all of these different techniques that were used inside this alert. You can also see from this is the same MITRE mapping I showed you. These are all of those MITRE tactics. And you can see that lots of red working to the right here means, this was a successful attack. Now, this is a demo system, so we're trying to show you how this works. Typically, I'll talk about how we would have stopped this. But bottom line is, it's important to note that the platform detected all these activities, right? Put them into an alert, and then it gave you the ability to take action, right? So you can come in here and you can do a couple things. You can say, give me recommendations, right? It's a very simple one here. Check for that host for malware. You can take action, right? You could have come in here and said, I want to remediate. Okay, I want to stop this attack. Here it's going to show you, okay, this is how I recommend we stop this. We take our EDR, and now it's going to show you exactly what it's going to do. Okay, so it's going to show you these actions, show kill this process, whatever it might be. So that's how, so I've showed you how the functionality we've added can help you understand, how secure your environment is, what kinds of things might get through. And again, if I go back, to my BAS, go back to my visualization. Give it a second to download. So again, you could do this for all these different techniques. I didn't show Akira. That was another one that we were going to talk about today. So here is Akira. This was run. Again, we saw 351 total techniques used, 97 were executed, 254 were blocked, that's good, but obviously, still some stuff got through. All right, so let me run back to my slides here. So let's talk about what we just saw. So bottom line is to once you know what's going on in your environment, you've run this 360, what actions do you need to take? How could you stop it? So if I back up a little bit here, again, Seceon has a platform that we've built that was designed to detect things like this, detect them early, and then let you take action, right? And one of the keys, if you did some research on APTs, is what they've done a very good job is being able to get around any solution that's collecting logs, right? Anytime you're just looking at logs, APTs do a very good job of being able to hide, lay low, and then take their action. So what's really important, and this is from the industry, not from Seceon, is that the ability to use net flows, right? The real-time telemetry that tells you who's talking to who and so forth from where. Those net flows do a very good job of detecting those techniques that are used in APTs. Okay. Now, the good news is, we've had that built into our platform from the get-go. So we use those net flows to help us build behavioral models for every host and be able to detect things early. Okay, I just sort of pulled this out of the internet here. These are different techniques that are actually attributed to APTs that will only be detected with net flows. Okay, so you can see, and I'm not going to go through them all, but there's a whole raft of different techniques that are used in APTs that would only be discovered with net flows. So it's really important for you if you're a service provider, trying to deliver services to customers, or if you're an end user trying to protect yourself, it's important to understand that the ability to detect those persistent threats that are in your environment it's heavily dependent on the ability to use net flows. because these are the techniques that are part of those attacks that would only be detected with net flows. Okay. So let's talk about sort of an overview here. So these are clearly, I mean, hopefully we've all gotten a picture here, very serious threats, right? Ransomware as a service and APTs are very serious threats, and they aren't going away. So you need to have some kind of tool in place. Again, this tool that I just showed you is the tool that helps you determine your security posture against APTs, against ransomware as a service. But in general, you need something that is actually being able to make sure that you're going to detect all those activities and actually go in and take action on them, and ideally in real time. Okay. So a key component to this is EDR and EPP, right? So you need something running on the endpoint that would detect those activities that APT is doing and then actually take action. And, we do provide EDR and EPP, and basically we have a prevention mode and a detection mode. So if you put it in prevention mode, actually almost every one of those techniques that you saw was executed would have been detected and would have been shut down. Now, I'm not going to tell you that, guarantee that there aren't new ones that are being created, but we are constantly updating our EDR and EPP to make sure that we're detecting those techniques, and then we'll be able to stop those attacks. So we're going to open this up for questions here in a second, but I just wanted to add that if people have further interest in a demo of the BAS, a demo of the platform, there's a link here to do that. We also have the ability to do a free trial. So you can go onto our website. Here's a link that you can use to actually set up a free trial. And then if you actually have any questions, so just want to book an appointment or just send questions, here's a link as well. So these are all available to you. So that's kind of it for my piece. Let's open it up to questions here. I think people were probably collecting them as we went along here. So why don't you go ahead and share, whoever is handling the questions?
Yes, Tom. Hi. So we have two questions from the audience. One is from Daniel Ehrenreich, I believe. OT cyber attacks may happen, but OT-directed ransomware is unlikely to happen because none will pay. Ransomware is always IT-directed. Can you refer to that? I don't know if anyone.
Can I refer to it? I agree with it. I'm not sure what the question is. So when you're talking about OT, you're typically talking about infrastructure, right? You're talking about power plants and water delivery systems and so forth. And correct. Well, I'm actually not sure now that I'm thinking why you're saying they would never pay. They're probably government controlled, so yes, most likely they're not going to want to pay. But depending on the criticality of the attack and the ability to stop it and undo it, I can't tell you. I know for sure they wouldn't pay.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you look into, I think I will just add on to it because in the beginning, you see the OT were the one which were paying the big money. That's right, because that's what happened to some of the biggest, like Canolian pipe and all that breach, where the big money was paid out there. So, but definitely, look, you always have to be careful that, it's like if you had done everything like as you plan that air gap and people are not able to get through and all that, but that rarely happens because everything somehow is jointed together. And OT are more likely to kind of like get impacted and paid. And you see, hospitals get targeted a lot in there, and that is the region is basically is like, hey, you get in there, and if their operation goes down, they're more willing to pay than anybody else out there. So I'll say, definitely you have a good point that, IT is like get more impacted, especially if you look into a lot of universities, their professors get impacted. They pay out some money even without telling the administration as well. Administration come to know later on. But at the same time, OT is kind of the one which pays the big money out there. Once they got into the OT impacted, it operation goes down, everybody is willing to pay big money for that. So it's kind of a both side. We'll not kind of say that IT is getting kind of paid, but not the OT. It's like both side. And if OT get impacted, people are willing to pay more money for it.
I would like to add one thing here. So this is really indeed a good question. So the ransomware attack typically on ITR to encrypt the data, exfiltrate the data, and those type of things. In terms of OT, they try to lock up the systems. So the classical example that you guys probably have heard about is the Colonial Pipeline. That was IT-OT combination ransomware attack, in which indeed shut down the pipeline, as you guys all know about, right? So yes, it does seem, at least on surface, that OT will not be attacked, but they indeed do get attacked. Okay, so I hope that helps answer the question.
And even if you look into it, it's like a lot of pharmaceutical manufacturing plant our biggest target as well in there, and those are like OT plant, because you see that's where they want to impact it so that they pay the money very quickly in there. And a lot of time, even if they did not had a big success, they went in there, they scare the people to pay into it. So that's another thing we have to keep in mind, because even a lot of manufacturing kind of like operations are getting impacted across the globe, and especially the one in the pharmaceuticals are good target for many of these attackers out there. you know but great question, by the way, Dan. That was a great question. Okay.
Hey,
So
let me jump back in here before you do another question, Maggie, because one thing I wanted to show and I didn't is so.
Till Tom is
sh-
sharing, so I would like to add one
yeah.
small Archie. So I would like to add another example, that is WannaCry is I guess most of we have already heard. There's a 2017 attack that's hit the manufacturing hard, including the Honda and the Renault Nissan plants across the globe and all. That was one of the biggest attack on the ransomware on the OT plants.
So one of the things that I didn't mention is it was in the introduction, SOAR, right? So the ability to detect these things, a ransomware attack, let's say it's they're encrypting files, detect it early and stop it without having to have human intervention, okay? Because there are some low and slow attacks, and some of the newer ones where they've actually, I think it was Akira has put in threading for their encrypting so they can do it much faster, right? So once they start encrypting, typically not most, but you're going to have solutions that can detect, okay, I've seen encryption going on, let's try to stop it. In our platform, you can build playbooks, right? So you can say, I want to define actions you want to be taken automatically, right? As soon as the alert is raised, as soon as the platform detects either the early techniques of an attack or actual encryption, you come in here, you write a playbook, and you say, I want to take these actions, right? So let's just say this was insider threats. I want to notify somebody, but you can add taking actions. Maybe I want to go out to my checkpoint firewall, right? And I want to block access. I want to block access to that site it's trying to copy that data to. Very simple. You come in here, you add I want to block this IP, done. And now you've written a playbook to say all the things you want to happen when this attack gets triggered and stop it. Okay. So these happen automatically. So within less than seconds of the alert being raised, you're actually going to be going out and taking action. So you don't have to wait for a human to go out, look at it, say, yep, okay, this is bad. This looks like ransomware. Let's try to stop it. You're going to do it instantly. So you're not going to get better response time than that. Okay. So I just want, again, that's our SOAR capability that's built into the platform. Sorry, Maggie, back to you.
Yeah, sure. We have a second question from Ian Massey. You say that AI Boss uses the top attacks used. What is the source you're using to come up with the top figure? Is that something that Seceon has seen, or using some sort of external database of known events? Can you please provide the source? All right.
So if Ashish is here, he should probably answer that. But let me add something that I forgot to mention as well. So there's lots of different attacks. I showed you we had, I think it was 48 that are already in there. Ashish will answer what the sources are. But it would be ideal if I could simulate multiple attacks in a single run. Okay, so because the techniques are common across a lot of these different attacks. And so the team is actually working on that, creating simulations that have techniques across multiple attack vectors, so that now I can simulate maybe 3, 4, 5 different APTs, different ransomware-as-a-service attacks with one run. Okay, and I think that's going to be really important in terms of making it easier for people to use this capability and do it more efficiently. But back to you, Ashish, if you're there. So what was the source for picking those top 48, I think was the question, right? Is it based on industry information?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so
Go ahead,
what we are
Ashish.
so see we are as Tom showed you guys the MITRE matrix or the MITRE framework where you can see uh, 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 all the attack matrix you can find out from there, as well as they are keep updating their framework. So that is the one source which we are following. We have a few more which if someone need we can provide that one. But we have also our team who is doing the research, trying to run those attacks in our lab uh, in like a separate environment, like so it cannot harm, because we are also the cybersecurity company, so we are also doing that one. So we are using multiple source, but the main I will say the source we are starting with the MITRE matrix framework. Okay.
Yeah, I think the question was that hey, how we are knowing that these are the like top ones in there. That's right. So there is a definitely publishings are happening by all the way from the FBI to like many other agencies across the globe. Like they are publishing it that hey, what they have done, because you saw the very specific number. Akira is a machine which made $240 million. That's right. They just got started, and in 2024, and they are 200 some $40 million and kind of business out there as a startup. They kind of get in there. So there are publishing that those are government agencies are publishing because they kind of know more of the reporting what is going on in there. But look, we kind of don't claim to know that hey everything is being reported, because something may not be reported and all that, but we are using it, the many of the government sources, as well as if there are some public, but more reliance on the government side in there, so that's what it is. Okay. If that was the question, Ian, from your side, I think that's what you wanted to hear. So if you can type, yeah, if that's what we're looking for. So we're looking into the government sources, and they report. They report each kind of like a quarter, hey, which is active and all that, because at the end, they have a lot of resources trying to trace them down as well. Okay. And you see, the thing is also, we are not just limiting into this, because you see, some of the new groups will come in there as well. Some of the groups will be caught, they will be dismantled and all that. You saw one of the group, which was a Lazarus group, has gone into disarray. They are trying to pop their head again in there, but they will kind of come out in a different form. There might be a different startup which will come out of that using the same set of the exploits or some new exploits they will kind of build their capabilities on. And that keeps on happening all the time. So some new group will become more popular out there. And this is for the ransomware side. And then APT, it's like, that there's not a lot of new APT comes in, but even the older APT, they keep on evolving in their tactics and techniques and the exploits they want to use and so on and so forth. So they become specialized. It means everybody in that industry is as organized as anybody else out there, because they want to kind of become experts into that and use those expertise to go after. They don't want to go after everybody, but they know that, hey, where I can use those exploits to get in, let's get into those ones in there. Okay.
We also
More
have,
questions, Megan?
yeah, we have some that came out of band before the presentation, but for example, how can Seceon's automated response possibly be fast enough to stop a sub-hour ransomware attack was one of the questions we have also received.
Yeah, hopefully someone answered that with the SOAR, right? So showing you that, first of all, the platform, and I maybe didn't go into a lot of detail on the overall platform, but it's designed by using behavioral modeling and built-in dynamic threat models to detect early techniques. So in a ransomware attack, what kind of things do you have to do, right? You have to You have to get in, maybe you have to do an IP scan. So you have to figure out what assets are available. Okay, we're going to detect that scan. Maybe you're going to then go to a new host and say, okay, I'm going to look at what's on that host. We're going to see that. Eventually, you got to go to a command and control site. Okay, all that's happened way before you actually start copying files or encrypting. All of those things would have been detected early, and an alert would have been raised. So we wouldn't probably called it a ransomware at that point. It might have been a malware infected host, but would have detected those activities. They're new for that host. They're not something that he normally does, and they're malicious. They fit a threat model. We'd raise an alert. Now with SOAR, okay, you write that playbook to say as soon as I see that malware infected host or that ransomware attack, take these actions. So it's not hours. It's not even minutes. It's seconds. Seconds from the time we detect that attack, and ideally early in the process, early on that MITRE ATT&CK framework. And then the SOAR kicks in instantly and takes action to stop it. Anybody want to add to that? Chandra, no? Okay.
You said it very well that, so we have many multiple kind of steps and stages where we can kill that attack itself in there. So as we pointed out, we have our PMAX. If it is starting from the endpoint, if it is some compromises, your credential compromises happening from outside, then we have those suspicious use of those credentials where the people are coming. So there is a many kind of detection as well as prevention capability we have, because we have a platform. We are not just looking into the endpoint, or we are not just looking into just network telemetry. We are looking into your identity. We are looking into your endpoint activities. We are looking into your network activities. We are also looking into your surfaces, what is happening around the globe with your threat intelligence and all that coming in there. So we combine everything together with the MLAI and dynamic threat model. And we are the only company in the world who have a common data format for the whole platform. So it's not that, EDR is running on its own and giving you cook telemetry only, or your identity is kind of running on its own. Everything is brought together where the same telemetry is used, whether it's coming from network, whether it's coming from log, whether it's coming from identity, whether it's coming from endpoint, to bring into in the common context with the situational awareness to find the any of those tactics and techniques being used into early steps and stages. Because see, some of the techniques and tactics, those are very common. You have to use those to do even your real work. So you cannot just keep on killing everything in there. That's right, because you'll kill it, you'll kill nobody will be able to do their work as well in there. But your goal is to kind of see the follow up what they are doing using kind of after that, somebody got one success and then what they do and all that in there. And if you are able to put that context with the situational awareness in there that, hey, this host is doing something which does not do. So you know that from the behavior point of view, and it is kind of reaching somewhere, or it's kind of doing some activity, or doing lateral movement and all that. You are able to combine all of those different kind of telemetry into the common context and kill it. Your goal is to kill the threat, that any of those activity within the first 4-5 stages, and that way that the whole kind of attack is not successful. Once you kill it, you kind of kick them out, you close the door. As Tom was pointing out, you can be taking actions, and that actions can be on identity, it can be actions on the endpoint, it can be actions on your kind of gateways, firewalls, or whatever other, if you have a cloud gateway and all that, you are taking the actions there. It can be combination of those. You kill that, and now it's a very kind of, pretty much is from the attacker as well that, hey, we are not getting anywhere, so let's get it out from here. And you have improved your cybersecurity posture as well in there. The goal is to kill them into the first 4-5 steps and stages, not let go in the MITRE ATT&CK, go into the beyond that where they start doing the lateral movement, start collecting the data, exfiltrating the data. Because after that exfiltration, even if you go in and not let the encryption happen, it's too late in the game, because now they have a data, they will kind of blackmail you anyway. out there if it is a ransomware group. Other thing is I wanted to make sure today we are talking just ransomware and all that. The next series will be like where you are talking with the APT. A lot of the APT goal is to not demand the money from you. Their goal is totally different. Their goal might be is like, hey, I just want to steal the intellectual property and still just keep my foothold in there, and I will see everything what is going on in there. It might be like your trade secret. It might be something of national interest and all that in there. That's right. So your goal is not only kind of like going to the last miss. If something has been collected, exfiltrated, even if in ransomware, you are going to be in trouble. And if it is like APT, that's even a bigger trouble in there. So your goal is to kill those into the first 4 or 5 steps and stages and not let them move into the other kind of steps and stages. That's what you want to do. Okay. I think this.
Yeah, I was just trying to show that pictorially here a little bit where, this is the stages, this is an alert. And these are all the different techniques that were used, and they were tracked. On 12/19, certain activities were seen. 12/20, nothing was seen. 12/21, a little more was seen. And eventually the alert was, when you've seen enough, the alert was raised. And you can see those techniques are mapped. This is the MITRE tactics again. These things that were detected were mapped into the MITRE framework. And as Sean was saying, the sooner you see it, the less red you see, and you raise the alert, the better. Right? Before you get to impact, you've stopped the attack before it exfiltrates, before it encrypts. And again, that platform is continually watching for you over time. Sometimes this is weeks or months. It's tracking activity. And once it's seen enough, it raises that alert, hopefully long before you ever get impacted.
We also had a question from Richard Carson about what percentage of APTs are done by LockBit. I'm not sure how you want to tackle that. I could get semantic about it, that technically they're ransomware-as-a-service, not APT like espionage group. But Tom, do you have an answer to that? Or
I think you already answered,
yeah.
Maggie. You gave a very crisp and clear answer. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want to split hairs though. If Richard, if you want to massage your question a little bit to get to the meat of what you were asking, I'm happy to answer, or we can also answer, by email later if you have a question, or if anyone has questions, feel free to follow up with us, for example, on LinkedIn. We had one more out-of-band question. Do you think we have time for it?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. The last other out-of-band question we had was traditional antivirus and EDR solutions already monitor for suspicious activity. What makes Seceon different than these living off the lands attacks you're describing?
I apologize, Maggie. I was flipping to
Maggie,
this
you have to
page.
read it again.
Sure thing.
Ask again,
Sorry, I
please.
speak
Ask
quickly. Traditional antivirus and EDR solutions already monitor for suspicious activity. What makes Seceon different than these living off the land attacks you're describing?
Yeah, so see, I think Tom had a very good presentation out there. So definitely EDR APP only sees probably 25 to 30% of the things which are happening in any specific environment in there. That's right. And you cannot put EDR APP everywhere as well, but only the surface covered by the EDR APP is like 25 to 30%. So let's say any of those, he was talking about is like you are doing the techniques, whether you are seeing from the network telemetry, you cannot see all of those using your traditional EDR. There are certain things where you cannot even put the EDR in there. That's right, or APP in there. You cannot put into any of your networking devices. There are many other devices you have in the environment where EDR, APP cannot be put it in there. You cannot put those into your printers and so on and so forth in there. So, and printer can be used to it's like get the data and start exfiltrating the informations and all that in there as well. And it has happened many times. So many other things are there. So the point is, look, EDR and EPP plays a very good role and critical role into the security as well in there. And that's why we looked into that, it's like if you have a traditional approach of taking best of the breed and creating your cybersecurity solution, what end up happening is you are getting the cook telemetry to look into and correlate also. You have multiple places to see what is going on. And what happens in that process, you end up missing out a lot of things in there. So one of the things you probably see in the industry, what is happening is everyone is now talks about, oh, we have a cybersecurity platform. Whether that platform was built with the common data set and common kind of like correlations, no. If you bought 20 company and you are trying to do like, cook telemetry based, like, correlations and all that, you are missing a lot of things out there. And Tom had a very good, I think, 2-3 slides in there, because those tactics and techniques, if you don't have a network telemetry in there, you are not going to catch it easily out there. You don't have endpoints kind of telemetry. So we saw that what was missing in the industry probably 5 years back, that, hey, when we are getting the cook telemetry from the EDR EPP, they are just like not kind of coming in with the common context in there. So we had to do our PMAX. And the reason was PMAX, because you see, we don't do just for the sake of doing the things, because, hey, what the value we can add. So even the PMAX, all the telemetry, whether you're EDR, EPP, data classification, device control, your file integrity monitoring, by filtering and all that data telemetry is getting correlated with the rest of the telemetry, whether it's coming flows and log and identity from the multiple system. One of the biggest thing, if you look into the industry today, the big mess right now, you have it because identity is a big source of kind of like, breachage out there. And the reason is very simple, because it's not that identity systems itself are kind of like, broken by themselves, but same person, an individual might have 30 different identity across different, some SaaS has a different, cloud has a different identity. Your kind of like, some applications will have. So one place Tom will show at Tom, .ertel@Seceon.com as a identity. Other said it will be Tom Ertel. Other said it's like a T Ertel. And some places it might be here 5689 at something at com. So you can see those identity. And if you don't have a way of like buying them together, tying them together, all of a sudden you have a huge problem, because you are not tracking the same persons doing different things at different places. And you see, other thing is also you have another challenge. Some of these clouds or some application, they don't let the common identity get used across them as well. So if you go into the Azure or AWS, GCP, they still have not tied up that, hey, you have a common identity across all of them, and same thing across like many other things in there. So there is a problem. You have to see that problem, and then you solve the problem that, hey, even if Tom has 30 identity, I can tie it together and say, you know what, this is a Tom, and Tom cannot be doing all these things like same time out there. He cannot be showing from Virginia, and then he can be also into like, Germany, and he cannot be also into the Westford at the same time. And how you do it, because if you have a different kind of like, ID for him, and those IDs are just kind of staying active from there, you cannot tie. But if I have a one ID for them, is like one ID for Tom is there, then you say, you know what, this does not make sense. Something is not right out there. So it comes down to, because that was a really great question, and there is a lot of misconception in the industry that, hey, my endpoint and some firewall and some little bit of like, like a correlation and an identity, I will be able to do everything in there, and I can detect the threats and all that in there. And there's pretty big misconception that you cannot, with those you just see like 25 to 30% of the surface. You don't see everything out there,
Yeah. Chandra, thank you so much for that really in-depth answer. With that, we're actually out of time. So I just wanted to thank everyone who joined us today. And it's also a sincere thank you to Tom and to Archanish for leading today's discussions, for Chandra Pandey, our CEO, for jumping in as well for these questions, and Smit and Ashish for lending your expertise and sharing your perspective. As a reminder, this session is part of our bi-weekly 2026 Cybersecurity Battlefield series. We'll be continuing this conversation in our next session, which will be on January 6th at 11 a.m. Eastern. And we're going to build on today's themes and go deeper into how MSPs are operationalizing unified security to stop modern attacks at scale. So you'll be receiving a recording from today along with a reminder and the registration link. I think you're already registered. If you registered for this one, we'll continue to update you, but be sure to bring your friends and colleagues to this series because we have a lot more to cover. Again, thank you for your time, and we look forward to seeing you at our next session. So have a great day, everyone. Thank you again for joining us.